Thanks for tuning in to my first ever live streaming event. I'm A.M. Jenner. I'll be reading from my upcoming novel, Sleigh Ride Off Devil's Ridge. I'll take questions at the end. Chapter 1. Monica Walker, gowned like her classmates in the deep green color of her college, was bouncing on her tiptoes in her excitement. She watched her eagerly thrown mortarboard soar high into the air as they celebrated the culmination of 4 years of study. She searched the field for the love of her life, struggled to his side, and threw her arms around his neck. "Will Slater, I love you. Now we can set the date for our wedding." Will's buddies, standing nearby them, snorted and chuckled. "Yeah, right," she heard one say. "She's kidding, right?" another one said, laughing. Monica looked at Will, wanting him to tell his buddies to leave them alone, but he looked bored more than anything. What was going on here? They'd been dating for 4 years, waiting for graduation before they began their lives together. "What?" she questioned. "We can do that now we've graduated, right? You said—" She faltered as his look changed from boredom to disgust. "I didn't say anything about a wedding. You did, because you're a fool. I didn't love you. I only wanted your brain. Thanks for the A's. Now get out of my face." He yanked his arms away from his neck, gave her a little push away, and left her standing there, her mouth open with shock. He and his buddies slapped each other on the back in congratulations, man style, and left together, not one of them giving her a backward glance. Laughter drew Monica from the black memories of graduation 6 months ago. She looked around to spot the source of the noisy hilarity. Ah! The core members of the Brad Hiller fan club stood several yards away, their adoration for Brad as bright as a neon sign as they laughed at his joke. Ugh! She turned with a snort of disgust and headed for the employees' hallway off the lodge's great room. It led outside by the back way. She didn't want to be tempted to watch the most handsome man she'd ever set eyes on. She'd rather be in the equipment shed waxing her skis than be caught ogling the resident stud of the Devil's Ridge Ski Resort, no matter how tempting that was. As good-looking as Will Slater had been, he couldn't hold a candle to Brad Hiller. They weren't even in the same league. She'd fallen for Will's attractive face and never looked past it. Well, pretty is as pretty does. She'd learned her lesson. She wasn't going to be stupid now and fall under Brad's mesmerizing spell, like several of the women here. Time to think of other things, like ski wax. It was safer. She'd been a ski instructor for years. After a summer filled with anguish over her failed relationship, Monica hoped working the ski season far from home would help her get over Will's betrayal. "Hi, Monica." Brad's low voice close to her ear surprised her. She looked up into his chocolate-brown eyes and missed the doorway. Her shoulder hit the edge of it, twisting her sideways. He reached to steady her. "Whoa! Ouch!" She grabbed the spot where her shoulder had slammed into the doorway. She'd have a bruise by morning, just what she needed. She looked up at him and could tell he was trying hard not to laugh, even though he kept his face straight. Humiliation made her blood triple its speed, rushing a blush to her cheeks. This wasn't the first time she'd bumped into or tripped over something when she was within sight of the man. Drat it! She'd never been a klutz before. Why now? And why in front of him? Ah! His face remained solemn as he watched her. "Are you okay?" "Oh, sure. I'm peachy keen." Her eyes felt glued to his face. She couldn't look away as she massaged her shoulder. He should get an Oscar for achieving perfect facial self-control under difficult circumstances. Doubting she'd have been able to keep from laughing, or at least goofy grin smiling, if the tables had been reversed, she hoped she'd at least have been as polite as he was being. Clearing her throat, she asked, "What do you need?" "Monday, some of us are going into the village for pizza. I wondered if you'd like to go with us?" He made it a question. Monica searched his face, trying to find how serious he was about the invitation. She'd love to go just to be near him, but it was too risky to her barely healed heart. No, thanks. I think I'll pass. Come on, please. Our next ski classes don't start until Thursday. A note of pleading colored his voice. She'd never heard him do that. She sucked in a small breath and held it for a second, considering. Nope. She'd continue down the path of no relationships. It was safer for her peace of mind. She smiled to lessen the sting of her rejection, shook her head, and turned to walk away. Brad reached out and grabbed her arm, halting her. She looked at his hand, then up at him, not saying a word. She couldn't. Her breath had caught with her heart's hammering cadence at his nearness. Her mind screamed, "Danger! Danger!" She could feel a tingly sensation on her skin as beads of moisture gathered at her hairline, and she knew sweat dappled her forehead. Oh, great! Exactly what she didn't need. Physical evidence of her nervousness. She swiped at it with her free hand, removing some of the moisture. Please! His voice was nearly a whisper. Monica shook his hand off. It matched the shake of her head. She forced her legs to continue walking away. She exited the lodge, and the cold winter air slapped her face with its briskness, bringing some relief. She halted just outside the door and sucked in a deep breath that smelled of pine trees and pending snow, wanting the lightly cloudy sky and the quiet mountain beauty to fill her with peace. Had she nearly succumbed to the wild enticement of staying near so he'd be with her and no one else? Ugh! Standing still, Monica mentally checked her innards. Calm was not going to happen any time soon. Her heart was dancing a wild jitterbug against her ribs, and more sweat was freezing on her forehead. She brushed a trembling hand above her brow to remove the moisture, glad she'd been strong enough to walk away from such temptation. When she'd arrived 6 weeks ago, Brad had been in the lodge's workout room during her official tour of the resort. She could have sworn Adonis was supposed to be spending the winter months in the underworld, not up here at this beautiful lodge bothering the mere mortals of the world. He'd smiled a welcome. She'd promptly stumbled against the edge of the treadmill, bruising her ankle. That seemed to set a pattern. While teaching the basics of skiing to young teens, she was at peace and fully coordinated. If Brad were in her vicinity, she tripped over dust. In a few months, the ski season would end. She'd never see him or any of the other instructors again. If she kept herself away from the emotional entanglements, she'd be home free and clear with a mended heart. Her degree was in web design and development, a far cry from the mountain slopes she thoroughly enjoyed. When she finished this season and moved into her career field, her job wouldn't allow her the winter months off to teach skiing. She'd make sure she chose a different company to work for than wherever Will was, and not look back. She shuddered at the thought of him, and a quiet voice close behind her said, "Do you need your jacket? You left it by the desk." Monica whipped around. Brad held her bright yellow ski jacket. She opened her mouth, but her words and her breath were stuck somewhere in the region of her belly button. Nodding, she reached out, but he held it for her, like a gentleman should. She turned and put her arms into the puffy jacket's sleeves. Keeping her back to him, Monica finally said a thanks loud enough to be heard by the human ear. He slid the coat up to her neck, but kept one hand on her shoulder. She could feel a warmth where he touched her, right through the fabric of her jacket. It made her shiver with desire. "I wish you'd come. The whole gang will be there, so we won't be alone." "The whole gang?" "Carolee, Phil, Jack, Ralph, Harlan, Paula, Susie, Elaine, and Ginny. Please come with us." "I don't think so," she repeated. Gosh, what an extensive vocabulary you use with this man, she mentally chided herself. Usually she could banter words with the best of them. At least she wasn't stumbling over one-syllable words. "Please, Monica, you'd be doing me a favor." He squeezed her shoulder ever so gently. Hot tingles zipped through from that spot straight to her tummy and down to her toes, burning a new track along her nerves. "A favor?" Curious, she cautiously kept her back to him. This man could charm fish from an open ice hole on the nearby frozen lake. Rousing cheers by all the women watching would accompany those exploits. Monica doubted he needed anything from her. He dropped his hand from her shoulder and cleared his throat. I don't want to be sandwiched between the gigglers for a couple of hours, but I'd already told Ralph I'd go before they signed on. His words were so at odds from her perception of him she couldn't help it. She turned and looked up at him, studying his expression. He was serious. I'm not sure how I could be helpful. He raised his eyebrows, a hopeful gleam coming into his deep brown eyes. If you came with us, we could eat together, and I could sit and talk to you. It would give me some breathing room. Stunned, the surprise was evident in her voice as it spilled into the air between them. Breathing room? I'm good for breathing room? Brad ducked his head. A ruddy flush of color stained his face, the shade clashing with his bright orange ski suit. That didn't come out very well. Sorry. What I meant was, he continued, but Monica didn't hear his words because she was laughing. She couldn't help herself. She didn't know he could blush. She hadn't known he didn't like all the attention he attracted. She definitely hadn't expected him to be embarrassed about anything in his world. Monica continued to laugh. It brought a relieving, cleansing feeling. A peaceful, soothing sunshine of generosity flooded in and gave her a confidence like nothing else had done since she had arrived at the lodge. He joined in her laughter, which made her laugh even harder because she knew he didn't know what had made her laugh. Finally, they regained control. Still smiling, he spoke. I'd appreciate it if you'd rescue me. Besides, you're so quiet all the time. I don't know you, and I'd like to change that. Would you do me this favor, please? Monica decided to check his sense of humor. If she reversed what a favor was, would he rise to the bait? What would I have to promise? Brad was instantly serious. What do you mean, promise? Nothing. You only need to come. I'll pay for the pizza. I just don't want to be on my own, that's all. On your own, If I come, there'll be 11 people, counting the two of us. That's not quite on your own, is it? Brad flushed again. Monica's smile widened before she explained. A favor usually has strings attached, as in, I'll do this for you if you'll do that for me. I want to know both sides of this promised favor before I agree to it. And I'll pay for my own pizza, but thanks for offering. Then you'll come? His smile hit the 1,000-watt mark in less than a wink. She had to swallow before she could speak. We'll have to see. I haven't heard what the whole promise is yet. Nothing! You don't have to do anything. Just come and sit next to me and eat at my table. Just talk to me. For not having to promise anything in his favor, I've already got several assignments. The way I count, that's not nothing. Her grin widened. What do you mean? What do you call sit next to me, eat with me, and talk to me? That's 3 separate actions, and all are part of this favor, aren't they? Brad looked steadily at her and caught on she was teasing. He grinned. They are, and my part's buying your pizza. Could you see your way clear to agreeing with the infamous triple favor to help me out? She could feel a tug of warmth coming from him, and her breath caught. She didn't want a wobbly voice letting him know how he affected her, so she nodded her head. Brad took a deep breath and let it out in a huff. The huge smile that broke over his face now eclipsed the 1,000-watt one and stole what little breath was still in her lungs. He took a step closer as if he would kiss her. She took a big step back, tripped on the stair, and fell on her behind. He reached for her, but she held out a hand to stop him. I'll be fine. Just give me a bit of space. He backed up a step and stuck his hands in his back pockets. Thank you, Monica. Sure you're all right? Monica nodded, got up, and brushed her seat while she carefully backed away from him. What time do I need to be ready? She asked to cover her fall. We're meeting at the fireplace at 5. Great. See you then. She stepped around him and continued toward the equipment shed. She reached the curb and looked back. He was standing where she'd left him, a smile on his face. Her heart picked up speed, and she nearly tripped over air as she hurried away.
There's no question. Respond to it.
Okay, from Whitney Abrams, love your voice. Well, thank you. I'm glad about that. You sound just like your mom. Makes me smile. That's from Tammy Ferguson. I appreciate that. Are there any questions? Does anyone want to know something? If not, then we'll catch you on another time. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Have a great day.